I did say back in the preview that I was definitely confident coming into this game that the Loons can finally break that curse and finally get their first ever victory against SKC at Children Mercy Park. But that being said, I didn't think it was going to be this comfortable, and that the Loons would be up 3-0 heading into halftime against SKC. And yes, SKC did not have Polito in this game, which was kind of a little bit of a surprise because Peter Vermees did said a couple of days ago that he was available to be in this game. And then when the lineup came out, I was kind of shocked the fact that he was not only not in the starting 11, but left out on the bench and in the 18th altogether. But I also feel like this was a game where the first half really told the story. And that this was a classic example of a game of what happened when you're giving the chances to put the ball into the back of net and you don't take those chances, it's going to come back to haunt you. And it haunts Sporting KC in this one. But as I said, there was no Polito in this game for Sporting KC, either in the starting 11 or on the bench. And this was really the first time this season that Minnesota was pretty much healthy throughout their entire lineup. I mean, I've been talking about how much the Loons have been battling with injuries, but this game, they weren't having any injuries in their starting 11 and on the bench, and thus that's why I kind of was feeling a little bit confident that the Loons can maybe pull off an upset in this game. And then another thing I want to also mention is that the game actually kicked off 2 minutes as advertised, and even though it is still a little bit of a delay kicked off, that is actually really good for a game that is kicked off as it advertised, because you know how many people complain about a game being on national television, as it is the case for this one on Fox, and that I thought this game was either going to kick off 10 minutes after the advertising time. It's going to kick off at around 5:40 and 7:40 local time there, or it's going to kick off around 7:55, as it is the case for a lot of national television game that kicks off usually 25 minutes after the advertising time. But for once, they actually got it right, and they actually decided to kick off right around the same time. And I think if it wasn't for that Maradona tribute, which was definitely a nice tribute to see happen early in this game might have just kicked off on time, and this might be one of the few and only time I've seen an MLS game actually kicked off at the time it was advertised to be on. Now, in the first half, just 2 minutes into the game, SKC almost got the opening goal, and Michael Boxall with a heroic clearance off the line after Russell tried to chip Dane Sinclair, and they even said that was the fourth consecutive game that Minnesota had a defender either clearing a ball off the line, which also just tells you that we have been so lucky this season. I mean, you also know how I've been mentioning how the Loons have been so lucky this season, and the fact that I was thinking eventually the luck is gonna ran out. Well, it seemed like the luck hasn't ran out yet, and it's another game where we were able to clear a ball off the line from one of our defender and keep this one at 0-0. But after a bit of a nervy start from Minnesota, they started to settle in a little bit and control possession. But as soon as I wrote that, just a minute later, Dane Sinclair was able to rob Johnny Russell, who literally completely cut open the Minnesota defense and went through on goal. And then on the very next sequence, Puncic had a free header in the back post, and I have no idea how that Dane Sinclair was able to basically clear this one out, or kept this one out. I mean, I know Puncic didn't really hit that very well from a free header, but the fact that Dane Sinclair was able to keep that out, and especially how Puncic just basically hit that header from such a close range, 99% of the time, that's in the back of the net. And I was also kind of holding my breath that, later on when they go to VAR to check to see whether or not if the ball crossed the line, that I was hoping the ball didn't cross the line. And on the replay, I was very thankful to see that the ball clearly did not cross the line. And in the end, it was an incredible save for Dane Sinclair. But at the same time, I thought the defense for the Loons was all over the place. But you can also say that, is this just one of those nights for Sporting KC where they're facing against a red-hot goalkeeper that is Dane Sinclair, and that those missed chances is going to potentially come back to haunt them? Well, after the Loons kind of survived that pressure that SKC decided to pile on them for the first 20 minutes, I also thought that they were really struggling in terms of keeping the ball once they get on the attack. But it seemed like they probably heard me writing that, because literally once again a minute later after I wrote that on the board, Kevin Molino scores from Reynoso to give Minnesota a 1-0 game. Reynoso and Molino just had a monster game in this, and it seemed like you can clearly see that these two having a great chemistry together, especially in these last couple of games, because just 8 minutes later, it happened again. Reynoso was able to assist Molino, and originally I thought this was potentially going to be offside, because when the ball was played into Molino, the SKC players and the defender just stopped. Like, they were thinking the flag, of course, raised up, and Molino, he actually was able to just get enough of that ball, kind of poke that one into the back of the net. But obviously everybody was thinking that maybe that is offside, because how in the world did Molino get that open, and why did the SKC defender just stop playing? But when they look on the replay, it was not offside, and this is why, I know a lot of players, they usually, when they see something that was kind of like as kind of obvious to be an offside, sometimes that is not the case, and there's also a reason why you need to play to the whistle. Like, even if the linesman raised the flag, or in this case the linesman didn't raise the flag, you need to of course keep playing and just not stand there and just pray that the flag of course would bail you out. And in this case, the flag did not bail Sporting KC out, and the goal of course was given, and the Loons were up 2-0 inside 35 minutes. And then just 4 minutes later, they basically blow this game open. And this time, it's Debasi scoring his first ever MLS goal from the corner from none other than Emmanuel Reynoso, who had a hat trick of an assist. And I believe he become only a... I actually don't know how many players before had ever had a hat trick of an assist in a playoff game. But it's a very, very rare kind of number, and a rare company of him joining that list as of a player to get a hat trick of assists in this one. But yeah, it was 3-0 in favor of Minnesota, and I was also going to write WTF is going on too, even though I kind of tweeted out on my Twitter page, and that I was stunned the fact that Minnesota were up 3-0 in this game, and I think Sporting KC was also pretty shocked too, because they literally just, after when they went down 3-0, they just never looked like the same team, not just for the first half, but pretty much for the remaining of the game. And that defense, I know that this defense is definitely not the best because of what happened in the last game against the Quakes, where if you give up 3 goals to a Quakes team that's not known to score, yeah, you have some big defensive issue. And once again in this game, there's been times where they either get caught out on the break or in the middle, or they just decide to be lazy and hope that they can be bailed out by the offside flag. And then also their defensive set piece was not good whatsoever in this game too, and because of that, they find themselves 3-0 down heading into the second half. And heading into the second half, I was hoping that, now knowing the fact that Sporting KC really need to go for it in the second half, you would think that Vermes need to start thinking about making some subs. And I know Vermes is one of those head coach that is infamous for him not making sub and always like to stick with the starting 11, but I was thinking he would at least think about making some sub and try to change things up. Nope, that is exactly what it didn't happen, in that Vermes kind of gone with classic Vermes and decided to make no sub whatsoever at halftime, and only started making his first 2 sub in the 55th minute. And then Minnesota, they would continue to attack, and that they were definitely not content of just scoring 3 goals. And that was also kind of a little bit of a concern I had with the Loons heading into the second half, where, Adrian Heath is just going to tell his guy that, well, let's just shut up shop and basically just hold on to this 3-0 victory, because I've seen that happen before in the past, where this team get too complacent and that they just shut down shop, even though they're not really there in terms of getting all 3 points, or in this case potentially moving on into the next round. So it was definitely refreshing to see that the team was still attacking and still was looking to get that fourth goal and not content to just win this game by a final score of 3-0. And as I said before, after when SKC went down 3-0 in this game, they just never looked like the same team going forward in the attack, and it just feel like the entire team just feel completely capitulated. The fact that they went 3-0 down, and that I don't even remember in the second half there was one time that Dane Sinclair had to make a big save, and that I don't even also remember a time when SKC really threatening in front of goals. So because of that, in the end, Minnesota was able to comfortably walk out of Children's Mercy Park, not only breaking the curse and finally getting their first ever victory against SKC on the road, but now they are going to be heading to the conference final for the very first time in their history. And the shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 13 that Minnesota has, 5 shots on goal compared to 8 that Minnesota has, 7 shots off target compared to 2 that Minnesota has, 7 shots out of block compared to 3 that Minnesota has in possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that Minnesota has. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the Western Conference final against the Seattle Sounders. Obviously, I know that is probably going to be the toughest opponent that Minnesota is going to be facing this season, and knowing the fact that the Sounders have an unbreakable record of them never losing a game at home. But as we have seen this season in 2020, just because you have a good record in the past and you have an unbreakable record against a team, that doesn't mean that it's going to translate this year. Sometimes the narrative will completely change, and we saw it again in this game where Minnesota, again, I always said that this was always a game. Whenever they play against SKC on the road, it's a house of horror and an automatic loss for Minnesota because of the fact that they have never won against SKC. And they even show us the stats of the fact that we only scored 1 goal against Sporting KC of all that time when we play them at Children's Mercy Park. But as we seen before, narrative is meant to be broken, and it's broken again in this, where Minnesota basically defied the odds of past history to basically move on into the conference final. And that, again, I'm definitely very excited to see that game against the Seattle Sounders. And if you're a Sounders fan, I'm not quite sure, are they going to be happy the fact that they're playing against Minnesota in the conference final? And there's going to always be that discussion about when a team does make it to the conference final first, who do you of course want to face? Do you want to face SKC or Minnesota? And that sometimes I do have that thoughts about me choosing this team to face in the conference final compared to the other team. But I think after what we've seen this season in the postseason, where it's just so unpredictable of how these resort is, and just because you have a good record in the past, whether it's at home or against an opponent, that means nothing when it comes into this season's playoffs. So again, I expect that game against Seattle should be a very good game, and I think Minnesota is going to be up for the task. And obviously, I know a lot of MLS fans are going to definitely root for Minnesota in that game against Seattle, because that a lot of fans, especially a lot of Western Conference fans, want to finally see the end of just a long dominant reign that is going on with Cascadia team representing as the team in the Western Conference. And this might be the first ever season we could see a team not from the Pacific Northwest and not from the Cascadia region, or a team named Seattle or Portland representing the Western Conference in the MLS Cup since 2014. But we shall see how that game is going to go. That game actually is only going to be will be just in a couple of days on Monday, and of course will do the preview of that game. Most likely I'll do it on Saturday alongside with the Eastern Conference final game, which, by the way, just to kind of talk about that game a little bit, there is definitely a lot of concern about that game with the way that it seemed like both of the teams that is in the Eastern Conference final have players that is tested positive for COVID-19. And obviously we know Columbus, they were a team that were having an outbreak coming into the Nashville game. It's going to be interesting whether or not, if all those players that was tested positive during that outbreak is going to be ready for that game against New England. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.